Good morning, Celtics fans. Welcome back to another episode of the Celtics Chronicle with me, your boy Adam Taylor. As usual, I'm joined by my homie, compadre, co-host in crime, Mr. Billy Calabrese. What's popping, Billy?
What's going on, everybody? TPE. I know that's the letters everybody wants to hear.
Yeah, so look, we all know what went down with Jaylen Brown. We know that Paul George is on the team. People are feeling the type of way about it, whether you're happy, whether you're sad, whether you're kind of indifferent. However you want to feel, like feel that way. No one's going to try and change your mind on this episode. What we are here to do is talk about Trey Murphy. There's been a lot of talk about whether the Celtics are now going to turn their attentions to Trey Murphy. They've got some additional picks off the deal that flipped Jaylen and obviously acquired Paul George. They have the TPE, the $27 million or 27.1, I think it is million dollar TPE that came from the Anfernee Simons trade back in February. And the hope is that obviously this move that Brad Stevens can go out, pick up Trey Murphy with the TPE without really giving any salary out or just barely any salary out and add Murphy in. And I think people would feel a lot better about the whole off season if that was the case. Obviously, though, there's some problems. The Celtics signed Mitch Robinson to a fully guaranteed 3-year deal with third year being a player option, and they used a full non-taxpayer mid-level exception to do so. Now, when you use the full non-taxpayer mid-level exception, it comes with a hard cap restriction at the first apron. Factoring that along with the fact that the Celtics are going to try and finish this season under the tax to reset the repeater tax, it becomes very difficult instantly for the Celtics to then go and use a full amount of their TPE or the majority of their TPE to bring in Trey Murphy because it goes against both issues. Now you're right up against the hard cap, if not potentially over it, depending on how much salary you send out in the opposite direction. And if you're that high up to the hard cap, it means you're deep into the tax, and Brad's got to do some more kind of cap gymnastics once we get towards the trade deadline to try and get the team back under. And I'm not sure he'd be able to do that short of trading away somebody like Derrick White. Billy, you're the cap guy, so you're going to have a lot more insight into this than I do. I will
Yeah,
get
so
into why Trey Murphy is a good target, but I definitely want you to kind of like not put a dampener down on things, but make it a little bit more realistic.
yeah, I really hate to be the buzzkill here. Nobody wants Trey Murphy in green more than me. I think he is the perfect fit for this Celtic I don't know, we have a nickname for this yet? I mean, we can't call them the Jays anymore. What is this, like Tatum and Friends? Is it the Tatum 5? Like, I don't know. We're gonna have to come up with something there.
Gin
But
and
we
tonic era, Pete.
ooh, okay.
Because
All right, I'm
you
into
got G
little
and T.
yeah, a little GT. Um, but what we were really are up against is we're already $3 million in the tax. And then obviously we have the hard cap at the first apron. So any trade to try to bring him in, we basically have to send out about $20 million. So that gets rid of all your Sam Hauser dreams where, yeah, we'll just give Sam Hauser and like 4 or 5 firsts, like, just this dream thing to try to bring in Trey Murphy. So really the only way to get to that money is if you include him in the Paul George trade, which is still possible because the trade is not official until Monday. Now, there's a lot of hoops you got to jump through to make that work, but it totally could work if you send Paul George to New Orleans and Murphy and other stuff would come back to us, keep us under. Everybody would be happy and cool. The other option would be the only other salary that's big enough is Derrick White. So you're kind of picking your poison here. I'm under the opinion one of the reasons they got Paul George, obviously, besides that was the best offer available, apparently, is because he's kind of like getting Trey Murphy. It's just older. He shoots, he defends, he does a lot of the same Trey Murphy things. I don't think there was any reality where we'd get Paul George and Trey Murphy, even if that's what maybe some of the fans wanted. But I do think he's more of a consolation prize.
Yeah, I'm not completely against Paul George. I think the biggest concern is the health stuff, right? Like he's not healthy often enough or for long enough at a time to really feel the benefit of having Paul George. Last time he was fully healthy was a contract year with the Clippers. After that, since he's been in Philadelphia, it's been play 5, play 10, miss 5, miss 10. And I'm not completely sold that that's going to change in Boston. Now, maybe it will because he's walking into an organization that has a very, very specific culture. Who knows that everybody there seems to be all about winning and improvement. Joe Mazzulla is going to hold him accountable. Who knows? But I do see where you're coming from in terms of like PG is just a more experienced version of Trey Murphy. Now, does this mean that the Celtics won't try and renegotiate locate Paul George as part of this trade? Of course they will. They're going to explore every option available. And if that means you can get Trey Murphy plus whoever else is coming in on part of the deal, then fine. I'm not sure that New Orleans would be okay with that. What's the value there for them outside of the draft picks? It depends whether they're really tempted to kind of go back into a rebuild, and it just feels like they're just in a perpetual state of rebuilding all the time anyway. For me, I do feel like Paul George is going to be a Celtic this season, and then you reevaluate next year, assuming he opts into his contract, when it's a lot easier to flip an expiring deal than it is to flip a deal with 2 years left. That makes it really difficult to get Trey Murphy. And I know a lot of people have been on this trade Derrick White train because he had a rough year. He definitely assumed a larger role, and some of that bled into his overall efficiency. I don't see the Celtics trading him unless it was a 100% upgrade. Plus the fact that the Celtics now have very limited flexibility in terms of they've got no mid-level exception. They've traded their biggest trade piece. If you trade Derrick White for Trey Murphy, how do you then plug the gap that is inevitably going to form at the guard position? Because you can't rely on Mike Conley because of his age. He's going to be more of a veteran leader and plugging in minutes here and there. And then if you've got Payton Pritchard, what happens if he needs to sit? Where's your ball handling coming from at the 1 or the 2? It just opens things up. You'd need to be getting back Trey Murphy plus ball handler for this deal to make much sense, assuming that it was a Derrick White involved deal.
Yeah, that's the only way it's a Derrick White involved deal, which I don't see happening because the front office loves Derrick White. They thought Derrick White was the biggest contributor to our success last season, to Jaylen Brown's dismay, but they love Derrick White. I know his shooting. I think they think that was just a blip. Like, you have good shooting years, you have bad shooting years. Hopefully he's got that out of his system and the shot comes back. But we do know the defense, it was better than ever last year. And I think with this more playmaking and free offense, that's not going to be as much as one guy dribbling ISO. You want a guy like Derrick White there, and our guard depth it cannot sustain any kind of Derrick White trade. The PG rerouting, I mean, we got basically the weekend for that to happen. But I kind of, like I said, I hate to pour water on it. I think this dude would be a perfect Celtic. I just don't see how he comes out in green.
Not right now. Look, if he's still there at the trade deadline and Paul George has had a good season, maybe you can do something then. Like, the trade doesn't have to happen right now. And this was part of people's pushback on the whole Jaylen Brown situation in the first place. Why did it have to be now? Why couldn't it be in September? Why couldn't it be in February? Why didn't it happen last season? Trades can happen up until the trade deadline. Just because Paul George starts the season on the Celtics and assuming Trey Murphy starts the season in New Orleans, it doesn't mean that by February that situation isn't open to change for both of those guys. And maybe then you can start working on a deal. If the Pelicans are just having an awful year, the Celtics can come in and be like, right, take Paul George, absorb this bad contract, give us Trey Murphy plus whatever, and we're going to give you some draft picks along the way to sweeten this because clearly things aren't working out for you. That could work. Sometimes patience is necessary to get to where you're trying to get to and what you want to get to. And the only downside to that is while you're being patient, another team might step in and take the guy that you're hoping is still available. But that's part of the risk. And that was part of the risk the moment that Brad Stevens signed off on a deal that led to Paul George coming back to Boston. Not back, heading to Boston, not back to Boston like he'd been there before. And this is kind of where I'm at. Sometimes you have to just try and be a little bit more patient at what you'd ideally want to be. Take stock of what you have and see how things are shaking out around the league. I'm very, very curious as to whether George makes it past the trade deadline. If he does, then I do think next summer we'll start seeing him getting shots. But Trey Murphy, for me right now, is going to be one of those later down the line, if he's still available, type of moves.
Yeah, and I can't help but just wonder that they kind of want to see what this looks like. I get that it's not ideal. It's probably not plan A, B, or C of what they wanted, but it is a very interesting team that's on paper. And you put this team on paper this year versus last year, and you put Tatum in the Brown spot. I mean, come on. Like, it's such an upgrade. I mean, you have Mike Conley taking the Max Shulga spot. You got, poor Garza getting bumped by Mitchell Robinson of all people. You still have Kada. Like, it's just an upgrade almost at every spot. And the young guys are going to continue to get better. The way Hugo looked today playing for Spain gave us a lot of hope. I just really want to see these guys kind of play together because I think Paul George is a great connector.
I also think that some of these young guys are going to get more minutes now that Brown isn't there because you can spread those minutes around a little bit more, assuming that the Celtics maybe keep Paul George on a little bit of a minutes restriction to try and stretch his health out a bit more. You might see Hugo get more minutes. Jordan Walsh could end up playing a little bit more. There's ways where right now what you're doing is you're banking on financial flexibility down the line, but you're also banking on internal development. And because of the developments we've seen Celtics talents have over the last few years, that's an area that you should feel really confident about, is the fact that we trust this team to develop the young guys they currently have and for them to be a better version of themselves come postseason than they are at the start of the season. Baylor Scheinman showed huge growth. He's heading into his third year. That's usually where guys really take a leap as well. So assuming Scheinman takes his third year leap, he's going to be a completely different level of player. Ugo's going to take a leap because this isn't his first time around the NBA anymore. There's going to be more minutes available for him to attack. Jordan Walsh is playing now because it's a contract year. He needs to prove it. It's a prove it year for Jordan Walsh at this point. I think Luka Garza plays really well in the sense of he knows he needs to prove himself. He's in the final year of his deal. And I said this on the live stream after the JB trade. I am kind of curious whether or not they run a little bit of double big and use Luka Garza in a way that we envision them using Danilo Gallinari back when they first originally signed him before he tore his ACL.
A huge what if, man. That Gallinari what if just hurts my heart. I always wanted Gallo on the Celtics, just being Italian and wanting an Italian Celtic. What I'm really curious about, though, when you take away Jaylen, who had like the highest usage rate in the NBA, and these guys still played well last year with the limited opportunities and touches and minutes that they got, like there's going to be such a leap there. Like I think everybody by now has seen the Pritchard with Jaylen and without Jaylen stats, just the fact that he has the ball more, he gets to do more. And that's kind of what's given the Celtics this idea that he could basically have a Brunson-like kind of leap. Now, I think that's not really possible just because he'll never get the free throws. He's not going to be able to get to the line like Brunson does. But 80% of everything else, I do think he can make that kind of leap.
I think Pritchard's going to have a great year. And the numbers say that when Brown wasn't on the floor, Pritchard really stepped up in terms of his scoring and his creativity, being able to be a connector, as you mentioned with Paul George as well. I think that Pritchard could really have a big year. Do I think he's going to have an all-star year? No, I'm not delusional. There's a chance, like there's certain people out there that genuinely believe in the right spot and right situation that Pritchard could be an all-star. I think that this year we're going to see, I do think that removing one of the biggest isolation players in the league is going to allow the Celtics to play a bit more of a free flow game. Tatum seemed really content with getting the ball out of his hands early once he came back. And that's always going to be one of his strengths just because how quickly he sees the floor and his processing speed and his passing ability. I'm envisioning him being more like a quarterback this year with a little bit more aggression, getting downhill and scoring around the rim. And that's another thing that Paul George does really well. He's going to force closeouts in a way that Jaylen Brown didn't. And once you force a closeout, I think that George is going to make the right reads, or they can run a 2-on-1 action. There's worlds where this could be a really good pairing in terms of just accentuating what Tatum does well, while also not needing the same level of usage as what Jaylen Brown did. Paul George is getting older. He's going to have to accept that his role's diminishing slowly. Plus the young guys. Pritchard, though, just to get back, I'm actually really curious to see how they use him, whether he starts, whether he comes off the bench, and more importantly, what type of role he has within the offense. Like, do they give him more of a larger shot diet? Do they ask more from him? Or is it just more of the same, but with the freedom of having one less guy to defer to?
Yeah, that's a big question for me. And the second big question for me is I don't think Tatum's just going to step in and have that high usage that Jaylen had. I'd be very surprised if Tatum comes back with a higher than 32% usage, which would be like, right in the superstar range, but not in the top 5. Like most of the top guys are 35 and above. I don't think Tatum's going to be at that, especially as, let's remember, he's still coming back from Achilles, but I think this is going to be more of a everybody eats offense, and it's just going to look like better basketball.
I think he's going to have a way higher number of touches. I think his touches are going to go through the roof.
Yeah.
because he's going to be the guy that's tasked with dictating pretty much all of the play. I think taking the ball out of Derrick White hands a little bit more, taking some of that creation load off him, is going to free him up to figure out his shooting again and get back to the Derrick White that we all kind of saw before last season. Overall, though, I do think this is a more egalitarian team now. I think there's a little bit more we over me. And that's not saying it wasn't like that with Jaylen Brown. It's just that Brown's game is predicated on his ability to attack in isolation. And if you remove that, now you become a bit more of a free-flowing offense. Again, kind of got off track with Trey Murphy. Murphy could fill a lot of what Paul George is filling right now. It's just the fact that it's going to cost too much as things currently stand, unless you're moving on from PG. What I will say is, did you read that Adam Himmelsbach piece that came out yesterday about the trade? And it said that the Celtics feel really good. Like,
yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting.
That told me that Paul George is staying around.
It's just made it seem like that was like the kind of player they wanted. Maybe not by name, like might not been specifically Paul George, but somebody that could shoot and defend and play make.
Yeah, for sure. I think that a lot of it is just wanting guys that fit a very specific system that Missoula's putting into place. I do wonder whether Missoula's going to change some of his attacking philosophies too. Look, they're going to shoot a ton of threes. That's not going to change. Paul George is actually going to allow that to be a little bit more, because some of the shots that Jaylen would have taken in the mid-range are now just going to go to PG in the corner or on the wing. Like, that's just the way it's going to be. But I will say that overall, I do feel quite good about this team. I'm not expecting them to be a contender this year in terms of like top of the East. Look, the East got stronger. Kawhi's back with Toronto. You've got the Knicks being the Knicks right now. Then you've obviously got the Sixers emerging. The Cavs are going to improve, or they're at least going to try and improve. The Pacers are going to get Tyrese Halliburton back. I'm trying to go down the list here. The Pistons are obviously making moves where they can. The East is getting healthy and it's getting stronger, and the Celtics are going to have to lean on the value of their system over the value of any individual player. But look, I've got them finishing in a decent seeding and maybe making the second round.
Oh, I think it'll definitely be higher than last year. I mean, not getting knocked out in the first round, maybe not seed wise, but they are projected to be second in the East still by the Vegas odds, for whatever that's worth. And then Toronto's behind us and Philly's a little bit behind there. They really are down on Detroit because of all this Duran drama.
So I'm trying to be quiet right now because I've got the garbage man outside and shit's loud. But,
no worries.
Yeah, I mean,
but yeah,
look, it is what it is, right? Like, I want Trey Murphy as much as the next guy. It's not going to happen. Or no, it's not. Let's not say it's not going to happen, because we don't know. And I'll get really upset when people make like declarative statements about things that they don't know. So I should practice what I preach. We don't know if it's going to happen. It seems unlikely that it's going to happen. But as currently constructed, this team coming into the season is in a better position than the team coming into the season last year. And that alone should be an encouragement. And I just want to put it out there as well. And we spoke about this ad nauseum last summer. It was always going to be a 2-year retooling window for the Celtics, because it takes 2 years to reset the repeat attacks. Once they had committed to doing that, it was never going to be a 1-year bounce back. We spoke about this. It was going to be a 2-year window. And I wrote this on Twitter earlier, replying to somebody. It's on a quote tweet if anyone wants to go and see. When it comes to moving off a supermax in the current NBA economy, and that supermax doesn't belong to a guy that's a top 5, top 6 unequivocal talent, it's very difficult to get fair value in return. It's going to be, you make a move to get off that supermax, then you make a move with the pieces that you get down the line to then try and turn that into value, and then you probably make some other moves. It's like step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, and at the end of it, in 18 months' time, maybe you look back and you're like, well, this player turned into what we have now, and now it looks like a good trade in a bigger picture. That's just the reality we're living in, especially for the Celtics, that are the first team to really feel the full weight of the second apron. And that's just a harsh reality that we're going to have to live with. Brad's doing the best he can within the constraints of a CBA that Jaylen Brown helped negotiate.
Him and CJ McConnell ruling the NBA. What I will say, though, it does kind of fill in with Tatum's recovery, Because let's be realistic. Yes, best case scenario, Tatum has an MVP caliber year. He looks like himself. He's 100%. But with Achilles injuries historically, he's probably going to have some ups and downs this season. And next year would be the one where we see Tatum at his best. But like I said, I'd love to be wrong. I'd rather have it be this year. I think it's a great opportunity for him to really get in the MVP race and maybe finish podium for the first time, finish in the top three. Like if we have a nice, 55 to 60 win season, I think he would definitely be in the mix, especially with all this drama. But I do kind of think that like the repeater and Tatum's injury are kind of like the Celtics are using that hand in hand. They're using that Tatum's recovery as a way to take that time, reset the repeater, and then really build up next year.
Unfortunately, that's just the way it's going to be. It needed to be this. It needed to be a 2-year window, and if it lines up with the way Tatum's recovery is going to be anyway, and you have two new veterans that can help keep a steady hand when healthy, when we're talking about PG, then that helps, especially while you're trying to develop young guys. And if there's a little bit of a culture shift there, maybe they're trying to change the way the team plays or the way the team prepares. I don't know. It's not like Jaylen Brown to me struck me as an exceptional leader. And I've been critical of Brown for a lot of different things in terms of metrics and stuff. But as a leader, as somebody that seems like a guy that really connected with the locker room, I think JB was exceptional there. And I think that one of the reasons Brad made the move from Mike Conley is trying to replace one high quality individual, one high quality leadership individual with another. And I think that was a really good preemptive move.
One thing that nobody's mentioning because it's asinine, but I do think it's a possibility to happen because we all know Paul George is going to opt into that contract, that player option next year. What is stopping the Celtics, if he plays well, from giving him an extension that's maybe a couple more years and get that number down?
I mean, the fact that he's going to be 37 and he can barely play 45, 50 games now would be the only concern, right? But if you're bringing it down to, I don't know, 2 years at 20 million, then fine. Whatever, 10 million, I'm fine with.
If he wants to win, if he wants to ring chase, like I said, I just don't think that like that can be ruled out, even though it sounds asinine right now. I'm just saying, best case scenario, he plays awesome. He's like 17, 18 a game. He's playing 50 something games a year. I think shooting and his defense, I don't think that's going to age poorly. It's just whatever nonsense was going on with his PEDs or whatever that got him suspended and some bad luck with injuries, sure. But I mean, there might be a window where PJ sticks around.
We could end up loving him. It's just that we're always going to judge, like coming into the season now, people are going to judge Hugo because of the Giannis stuff. They're going to judge PG because of the Jaylen stuff. There's a lot of judgment being passed before a ball's been rolled out. And I think that 10, 20, 30 games into the season, people are going to start falling in love with guys. PG might be one of those guys. He might not be. But where I am right now is I'm trying to be as open-minded as possible to what this team's capable of and what they could possibly look like on the floor. I think the spacing is going to look completely different with Mitch Robinson in there as well. Asking him to be a screening hub on the perimeter feels like a bit of a stretch. We're going to get a lot more lob plays, a lot more dunker spot entries. It's just going to be fun. I think that it's just really hard right now because we're 24, 48 hours at this point, roughly removed from Jaylen Brown being traded, and the return was so underwhelming that people was kind of took by surprise. And I'm kind of like, that's just the NBA world we're living in. And that's the downside of the contract that JB is on. It just is what it is.
Totally true. And then the one thing that really frustrated me, I know it was out of our control, especially with our cap situation, for Simons to sign for so little to Philadelphia.
Oh, that pissed me off.
Oh, that's the most annoying thing.
But again, I think that he's gone to a place where he feels like he could win a championship and build his value back up. He's also teaming back up with JB. So he's not going to be walking into a room that he doesn't know anybody. He's going to be walking into a room that him and Jaylen can kind of pick up whatever partnership they were developing during the first half of last season. But it just sucks, man. But again, I don't see how Simons would have fit with this new version of the Celtics as well, especially if they want the ball pinging around a bit more.
Oh, man. And that's something that I kind of think Philly is going to buyers beware. I've listened to a couple Philly pods already, like the Rights to Ricky Sanchez. Shout out. They're the best for the Philly guys. I mean, they're a little skeptical about Jaylen Brown too. Like, he can't come in here and just run the show. Like, they really like what they have with VJ. They don't want to mess up his development. It's Maxi's team, and then the 42 games you have Embiid, you kind of have to defer to Embiid when he plays. So there's only one basketball, guys. Like, it hasn't worked out historically when a Celtic goes to Philly. Like, I mean, Fultz, even though he wasn't technically a Celtic, it was our pick. Horford. I mean, it's just a bad stretch. Like, could they get burned again? It'd be really funny if it's true.
And just to put this out there as well, the Sixers are a team where Jaylen Brown is not going to be the first or the second option. There's going to be nights where he might even be pushed down to being a fourth option, depending on how hot Max's hand is. So, sorry, how hot Edgecombe's hand is, because the pecking order right now would probably be Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey, Jaylen Brown, VJ Edgecombe. As VJ continues to play and develop, they're going to want to keep funneling the ball into his hands because that you need him to become the best version of himself. And the biggest concern I've seen online is whether Brown will impact that development for VJ. So there's times where VJ might get put above Jaylen in that pecking order. So going from a team where you were the second option and there was a lot of speculation as to whether you wanted your own team, to then land on a team where most nights you'll be the third option, and then there's a chance on some nights you'll move down to the fourth option. That's rough, man. But I do think that putting Brown in a position like that, assuming he's willing to accept it, actually makes a ton of sense for his skill set, and he could have one of his most efficient years if he plays within that system. Obviously, that's not our concern anymore, and it's not something I'm going to wish him the best. I want him to have an amazing year. I want the rivalry with Jaylen versus Jason during postseason or during regular season game. I want all of that. But right now, my focus is on what the Celtics team is going to look like, and I'm actually itching to get to preseason.
Oh man, and like I said, I'm stoked for summer league, but yeah, I need at least to see this roster like just on the court. Like, preseason is going to be so fun and interesting because I just want to see the lineups. Like, I really don't know who starts. Are we doing two guards? Is Sam going to start? Is Sam still going to be there? Like, there's just so much still to come. Like, oh, I'm stoked.
With that, everybody, I think we've kind of exhausted our Trey Murphy. Well, we was meant to do 20 minutes on Trey Murphy. We did about 8 because there was so much other stuff to talk about. Make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. Make sure you hype this video on YouTube. If you're listening on audio, share it with your friends. If you've got a yacht salesman, to your yacht salesman, to your solicitor, to the waiter, the waitress, the person driving the Uber, share this show with them. Make sure that they're sharing it around and subscribing. We're trying to grow everywhere. We'll be back again at some point over this weekend as we keep this momentum going. I'm your boy, Adam Taylor. This is my homie, Billy Calabrese, letterbox connoisseur. Go show some love to Billy over on Letterboxd. Where can they find you, Billy?
CBO041. We're at over 215 followers. Let's get that number up, man. I want 300 by the end of summer.
And then with that, everybody, thank you for watching. Deuces.
Peace.